In this video, I will be showing you ways to apply CSS to an HTML document. There are three ways of applying CSS to an HTML document. Number one, we have the external style sheet. Number two, we have the internal style sheet. Number three, we have the inline style sheet. When we talk about the external style sheet, which is the first one I just made mention of now, is we're working on creating a separate CSS file for this particular web page. We are creating a separate CSS file, linking that CSS file to our index file that we have here. So what do we do now? Let's go down to Particle. Let's open our folder. If you look down here, we have my first class folder right here. Coming down, we have HTML files, and we have an image folder. So the next thing we should do here, if you come down here, you're going to see that we have a new folder option here. Now we are going to create a separate folder for our CSS style sheet. So I'm going to create that. I'm going to name it style sheet. Style sheet. Click enter. Now after doing that, we are going to open a separate CSS file inside that particular folder. So what do? We click on it, so you see this particular toggle arrow comes down. Then you go down to the new file and click on new file. So the moment you click on new file, it comes down underneath the style sheet and you are good to open the new file. Now I'm going to name it my style sheet. My style dot CSS. Very importantly is the extension we have .css. So whenever you open a separate CSS file, the extension should not be .html, but it should be .css. So let's click enter. So the moment we enter it, it takes us to that particular file. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pull down a rule set declaring the selector, selecting the paragraph. So what I want now is that I want to style every paragraph I have on my HTML document. So what property do I want to use here? I have color property. What color should I give it? Red. Okay, so I have the selector selecting the P, that's the paragraph element. Then the property I have here is color. Then the value I have right here is red. Now we are good to go. So let's move to the index.html. That's our HTML document. Now we'll go down to the top. Now in our HTML section, talking about the head element, I talked about the head element displaying the informations concerning this particular HTML document. Now the latest what we are going to be passing into this particular head element is the link. Now we've created an external CSS style sheet. Now we need to link that external style sheet into our HTML document. So what are we going to do? We click enter. So we just put link. Open an element for link. Then we have rel. What do we pass into the rel? Style sheet. I will explain what that is shortly. Then after that we have the href. So what do we have there? We have the style sheet, then we have my style.css. Then we are good to close that particular element. Now when what we have here, we have an attribute for rel, okay, when we have an attribute for href. Now this particular attribute for rel is a relationship between, that's the relationship between the linked file and the HTML document. So what we have on the linked file is style sheet, so the relationship we have in between that particular file and this particular HTML document. So that's what we have in here. Then the href is linking the particular CSS file down inside this particular HTML document. So that's how to actually do the linking. So what next? We are going to check what happens to our paragraph tag if it actually changes the color that we have there. So let's move on to our document. So we're gonna reload. Okay, so you see we have this changed. This is a paragraph tag. The color right here is now red. Now the very important thing I would like to discuss about is that using the external CSS is a very good practice, because if peradventure you have more than one HTML document that you want to style, using the external style sheet is a very good practice, and it will be easier for you to link every one of those documents with one single CSS file instead of creating separate files for separate CSS files for separate HTML documents. You don't need to do that. The moment you create one file, CSS file, you can link it to as many HTML documents of your choice. So that is the best practice when working on web development. When working with HTML and CSS, you just create an external style sheet and link it to every HTML document that that you're working on. Okay, now the next one we are going to be working on is the internal style sheet. The internal style sheet is quite different from the external style sheet. So how do we achieve that? What I will just do here, I will comment on this. I showed us how to comment in our previous class, so I'll just do that. Okay, so commented on that. Now let's go down to what we have to do for the internal style sheet. Now we open a style tag. Okay, we open a style tag, then opening and closing, and very importantly, the style tag should be opened and closed inside the head element. Very important. Okay, so we create the first row set. Still the same thing that we are going to do in our last one. We're going to create a paragraph. I want to change the color, okay, to red. Alright, don't forget to end with a semicolon. Okay, so maybe we can add something else. I'll just say font size, so I'll make it large. Okay, so let's check this out in our browser. Okay, so we will load the page. Okay, so we have this is a paragraph tag, and it's okay, it didn't change much. Okay, the bottom line is that it's actually affected in the color. We can see the changes that we have in the color. Okay, so this is much about the internal style sheet. Okay, so we really don't use the internal style sheet when developing, just as the way we use the external style sheet. When you're using the internal style sheet, you can only style this particular HTML document. You can style another one. In the other HTML document, you have to create another internal style sheet for that particular HTML document. So it's not much of a good practice in web development, but I have to show you how this is done. So little times little period, that's we don't use it much, but the little we do use it, we actually get hold of it. Alright, so that's it about the internal style sheet. So let's move on to the inline. Now the inline style sheet is quite different from the internal and external. Now the inline style sheet is creating an attribute, a style attribute inside the HTML element. That's the purpose of styling that particular HTML element. Okay, for the purpose of styling just that HTML element. Like for example, this particular paragraph we are going to style will only affect this paragraph. That's the style we are going to put here will only affect this paragraph. If there is more than one paragraph on this particular element, it will not style it. It will not style it. If there's more than one paragraph on this particular document, it will not style the next paragraph. It will only style this particular one that we want to do here. So what we are going to do, open a style attribute, then color, so red, and put a semicolon at the end. Okay, put a semicolon at the end. Yeah. Alright, so what we have here is color, and then we have the value to be red. So maybe let me check, let me just put another paragraph tag here so we can see what we're doing. Okay, this is another paragraph tag. Okay, so I will have to comment on this. Sorry, I have to comment on this. To comment on this. Okay, let's comment on this. Alright, now let's move on to what we have to do. Now let's go check this particular element we just have here. Okay, so you see that it styles just this particular element. Okay, so it's not going to style any other paragraph we have in that document, just this particular paragraph that this is going to style. Like in the previous one we just did, the internal and external, the moment you style a paragraph here, it goes in there and style every paragraph element we have, it finds on that document. But using the inline style sheet, it just goes there and styles the particular element that style is passed in. Now this style is passed into this particular paragraph element, so it's going to style only this. Okay, so that's it about the inline style sheet. Not so much used. It's the external style sheet that is widely used by developers. It's not as if this particular inline style sheet is not effective. It's really effective. We use it in some cases, but not in all cases. So the bottom line is that you get the actual style sheet that you want to use for different purposes. So that's why I have to give you a full explanation on how this is done. And so it's your choice to get hold of each one of these style sheets for effective use towards your desired program that you're working on. So the most important thing is that for you to know that the external style sheet is far much used than the internal style sheet. So that's it, all you need to know. So what I'm gonna do here, I'm just gonna comment. Oh, let's take it off. Oh, okay, I just, for the case of the other sections, so I'm gonna leave the external style sheet, comment on the internal style sheet. Let me comment on it properly. So I have this. All right, then another, so we have to take this off. All right, so thank you and see you in our next section.